I read my own mother's Mother's Day message in the family group chat, and my name was not in it. The glow from my phone cut through the locker room as the shift change buzzer screamed behind me. The air smelled like sanitizer and processed meals. My hands stung from cold metal, skin cracked beneath my gloves. Another night shift done. Another night of keeping things moving. My name is Sarah Moore. I am 25. I work nights at a packaged meal processing facility outside Ashford, Indiana. It is not glamorous work, but it is honest. It keeps schools fed, hospitals running, and for a long time, it kept my family afloat. After my dad died, someone had to stay. My siblings were already chasing polished futures. Daniel, in healthcare. Rebecca Fletcher, in branding and marketing. Mila Fletcher on a policy track everyone liked to brag about. I stayed behind, picked up overtime, and helped cover the mortgage while my mother learned how to be a widow in public. To her, my steel-toe boots and factory badge meant one thing: failure. At a family barbecue 2 summers earlier, when a relative asked what I was doing with my life, my mother laughed and waved a hand like she was brushing away dust. "Sarah is taking some time, Mum," she said. "Just helping out at a local place for now." She did not say factory. Later, by the drink cooler, she hissed, "Why can you not be more like your siblings? Do you know how this makes me look?" I swallowed it, like I always did. I told myself it was temporary, that if I worked hard enough, if I carried enough weight, eventually she would respect it. Mother's Day proved how wrong I was. I was sitting on a stack of pallets behind the loading dock, scrolling during my break, pretending I did not care if I heard from my family. My phone buzzed. More family group chat. I opened it expecting something generic. Instead, I saw my mother's message, carefully typed and perfectly cruel. "Mother's Day dinner tonight. Successful kids only. Daniel is saving lives. Rebecca Fletcher is building brands people admire. Mila Fletcher has a real future. Proud does not even cover it. Dinner at 6:30. She tagged all 3 of them. Not me. Reactions popped up immediately. Applause emojis. Hearts. Excited replies. No one asked where I was. No one noticed the gap. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. In the dark reflection along the edge, I saw myself. Hair tucked under a cap. Face pale from fluorescent lights. Hands that looked older than they should have. This was not an oversight. It was an erasure. My phone rang. A video call from my mother. Her smiling contact photo felt like a dare. I let it ring out. A text followed. "Hope you understand. Tonight is about celebrating achievements. You know you are always part of the family. Always part of the family, just not worth mentioning." The break timer buzzed. I slipped my phone into my pocket and went back inside. The line moved. Boxes stacked. The system kept running. But something inside me shifted. For the first time, I stopped asking how to make her proud. I started asking why I had given her that power at all. And standing there, surrounded by noise and cold steel, I realized this was not just a hurtful message. It was a line in the sand. The next move would be mine. The day after Mother's Day, my alarm went off at 4:30 a.m. Same, like it always had. Same thin sound. Same dark room. Same uniform, waiting on the chair. What was different was my first thought. I did not wake up wondering how to make my mother proud. I woke up wondering why I had spent so many years trying. I made coffee and sat at my small kitchen table, staring at the wall while the mug warmed my hands. Then I grabbed a notebook and drew a line straight down the middle of the page. On the left I wrote, "Stay connected." On the right I wrote, "Cut ties." Under "Stay connected," I listed the reasons that had kept me quiet for years. Holidays, family reputation, do not be the bad daughter. Maybe she changes. The list looked thin, defensive, like it belonged to someone afraid of consequences. On the right, the words came faster. No more erasure, no more humiliation, no more explaining myself. Peace. That word sat heavier than the rest. My phone buzzed. The family group chat filled with photos from dinner. My mother smiling between Daniel and Rebecca Fletcher. Mila Fletcher holding flowers. Under one photo, my mother commented, "My 3 shining stars." My stomach tightened. Then came the private messages. Daniel told me Mum was hurt and that I should not make everything dramatic. Rebecca Fletcher suggested that if I showed up with a better career, things would improve. Mila Fletcher said she hoped I was okay, but maybe I could let it go. No one said the message was wrong. I took a screenshot of the original Mother's Day text and saved it to a locked folder. Not to dwell on it, to keep the truth from being rewritten later. Then I muted the group chat. I opened my mother's contact next and blocked her number. I blocked Daniel and Rebecca Fletcher too. I paused on Mila Fletcher's name and left it untouched. When the silence settled, my hands were shaking. That evening, Jenna Alvarez came over with takeout, and one look at my face told her something had snapped. She read my notebook, both columns, then looked up. "You already decided," she said. "You just needed permission? Who cuts off their own mother over a text?" I asked. Jenna did not hesitate. On my fate. Who erases their child over an image problem? That was the moment I stopped calling it cruelty. I wrote one final line under her cut ties. I choose me. The next morning felt quieter, not empty, just quieter. At work, the line moved the way it always did, but I noticed things differently. Patterns, bottlenecks, risks no one talked about. When my supervisor, Linda Parker, mentioned the company's tuition reimbursement program, I did not brush it off. I signed up for night courses at Ashford Workforce Institute, industrial safety, process improvement, operations basics. It was not glamorous. It was practical. It made sense. 2 nights a week, after my shift, I sat in a classroom that smelled like dry erase markers and stale coffee. Most of us were tired. Most of us worked with our hands. No one asked me to be embarrassed. I asked questions. I took notes. I learned how systems failed and how they could be fixed. A few weeks later, Linda called me into her office. "Your reports are clean," she said. "Your shift has the fewest incidents. The improvements you suggested are working." She slid a paper toward me. "We need a line supervisor for a new project. Night shift. More responsibility. More pay." A year earlier, my first thought would have been my mother. This time it was not. "Yes," I said. "I am interested." The promotion changed everything and nothing at the same time. More hours, more pressure, more authority. People started coming to me for answers, not because I had a polished resume, but because I had been where they were. Late at night, though, old habits crept in. I would scroll past photos of my siblings, past posts about proud parents and successful kids. The gap where I used to exist still tugged at me. One night, after catching myself staring too long, I closed my phone and opened my laptop. I started writing. At first it was anger, about blue-collar work, about the way families and society treat survival as failure. Then it became personal, about conditional love, about watching your name disappear from your own mother's sentence. When I typed "successful kids only," saves only, I stopped and left it exactly as it was. I asked one question in the middle of the page. Does your worth depend on the people who refuse to see it? Or can you build it anyway? I did not use my name. I did not list places. I hit publish and titled it, "Successful Kids Only, when your family invites everyone but you." By morning, people were reading it. By afternoon, thousands. Comments poured in from strangers who sounded like they had lived in my house. Jenna messaged me, "This is you, right? I am proud of you." Then the story crossed into my mother's world. One of her church friends shared the post with a caption asking parents not to do this to their children. A few days later, my phone rang from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. My mother's voice sounded tight. "People keep sending me this story. I hope you are not involved in something that makes our family look bad." Not a question about me, just about appearances. I saved the voicemail. That night, Linda stopped me in the hallway. "I read an article today," she said. "The writer sounded like you." "Maybe? You said." She smiled. "If it was you, it was powerful. Anyone who can lead a line and write like that is going places." I printed the blog post and my old pro and con list and put them in a folder labeled "Proof I Am Not Crazy." When doubt crept in, I opened it. A few weeks later, Jenna shoved a flyer into my hand. "It's a storytelling night downtown. Theme is when family crosses the line. You should do it." I laughed it off. But a week later, my name was on the lineup, and I did not yet understand that stepping onto that stage would mean my story was no longer something whispered in private. It was about to become public. The night of the storytelling event, my hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the microphone. The room was packed, folding chairs pressed together. People in hoodies and work boots sitting beside others in business casual, faces already tight with emotion, like they had arrived carrying stories of their own. The stage lights were harsh, bleaching everything past the first few rows into shadow. I took a breath and gripped the mic. My mum once told a room full of relatives that my job was embarrassing, I said. A ripple moved through the crowd. Someone whispered, "Damn." I did not rush. I let the silence work. I stayed in my hometown to work nights at a processing facility, so my family could keep the house after my dad died, I continued. I came home smelling like cold metal and spices, hands cracked open, body exhausted. I thought that counted for something. I paused, my voice steady now. On Mother's Day, my mum sent a message to our family group chat. She invited her successful kids to dinner. She listed their careers, their futures. I swallowed. My name was not in it. The reaction was immediate. Gasps. A woman in the front row covered her mouth. Someone shook their head slowly, like they had seen this exact scene before. I told them about the loading dock, the break timer buzzing, the way I refreshed the screen, waiting for my name to appear like a mistake that would be corrected. Then I said the words, "Successful kids only." The room went quiet in a way that felt heavy and shared. "I want to ask you something," I said. "Have you ever realized that your family only loves you on their terms? That the moment you stop making them look good, you disappear?" Heads nodded, some reluctantly, some fiercely. I talked about the list I made at my kitchen table. Stay connected versus cut ties. I talked about blocking my own mother and how it did not feel empowering at first. It felt like grief, the kind that sits in your chest and does not care how logical your decision is. And then, I said, I stopped trying to explain myself to people who had already decided who I was. I told them about the classes, the promotion, the blog I wrote late at night because the words would not leave me alone. I talked about strangers who understood me faster than my own family ever had. Near the end, my hands stopped shaking completely. I used to believe family was a debt, I said, that because they gave me life, I owed them silence. I know better now. I scanned the room. Faces leaning forward, eyes wet. I can love where I came from and still walk away from the parts that were killing me. When I stepped off the stage, the room stood, not with wild applause, but with something deeper. Recognition, relief. People came up to me afterward, one by one. A woman grabbed my arm and whispered. I screenshotted my mum's text the day she uninvited me from Christmas. I thought I was crazy. "You are not," I told her, and I meant it. On the bus ride home, my phone buzzed non-stop. Tags, messages, clips from the event spreading online. Someone with a large following had reposted a video with the caption, "The successful kids only, mum, is why so many of us are in therapy." The comments were chaos and catharsis mixed together. Halfway down the thread, a familiar name stopped my thumb. Mila Fletcher Moore. She had written, "Sometimes the successful kids are just the ones who learned how to perform. The others are just trying to survive." Eve. My chest tightened. Later that week, Mila Fletcher texted me. She saw it. She wrote, "People at church are talking. She says you are airing family business." I stared at the message before replying. "Maybe. I heard fight," I typed. But maybe someone needed to hear it. That was the moment it clicked. This was not revenge. It was consequence. My mother had spent years controlling the story, polishing it for the right audience. Now there was a version she could not edit, and it was traveling faster than her explanations ever could. A few days later, an email landed in my inbox. An invitation to speak on a panel about workplace dignity and class. Another followed from a community group asking to reshare my writing. Doors opened that had nothing to do with my family name. At the plant, people treated me differently too. Not carefully, respectfully. They trusted me with their problems, their teams, their time. For the first time, my value was not up for debate. Through Mila Fletcher, I heard that my mother was unraveling, not dramatically, quietly, complaining that people were judging her, that they did not know the full story, that her daughter had embarrassed her. She never said she was sorry. She only said she had lost control. And standing in that strange space between grief and freedom, I realized something else. The story was no longer about her reaction. It was about what would happen when she finally needed something from me, because I knew that call was coming. And when it did, I would have to decide whether boundaries only mattered when they were easy. If you think the hardest part was speaking on that stage, stay with me. The real test came later, when guilt showed up dressed as responsibility. The call did not come all at once. It arrived in pieces. At first it was Mila Fletcher mentioning it carefully, like she was testing the ground. Mum had been missing work. Her blood pressure was bad. The house needed repairs she kept postponing. The roof leaked again during a storm. I listened without interrupting, without offering solutions. Then one night, while I was sitting on my couch with my suitcase half-packed for another work trip, Mila Fletcher called and said the words I had been expecting. Idufumau. She wants your number, she said. She says she needs to talk to you. I closed my eyes. Why? I asked, even though I already knew. There was a pause. Bills, Mila Fletcher said. Medical ones. The house. She heard you were doing well. Traveling. Speaking at events. There it was. Not I miss you. Not I am sorry. Not I hurt you. Just need. Guilt rose fast and familiar, like muscle memory. For a moment, I pictured my mother alone in the house I grew up in. The living room dim. The walls a little more worn than I remembered. The version of me who had stayed behind, worked overtime, and kept things together stirred inside my chest. I took a slow breath. What do you think I should do? I asked Mila Fletcher. She was quiet longer than usual. I think you already gave more than anyone ever counted, she said finally. You stayed when Dad died. You helped when no one else was around. Mum never acknowledged that. I do not think you owe her a rescue now. The word rescue settled something in me. She's going to say you abandoned her, Mila Fletcher warned. She is going to say you are cruel. I am not cruel, I said. I am finished. I asked Mila Fletcher to pass along a message instead of my number. Tell her I hope she takes care of her health. Tell her I hope she finds support. Tell her I am not stepping back into that role. A boundary stated plainly. No explanations to argue with. No wounds reopened. A few weeks later, a small package arrived at my apartment. No return address. But the handwriting was unmistakable. Inside was a jewelry box from my childhood and a letter. I read it standing at my counter. She never wrote, I am sorry. Instead, she wrote about intentions, about being misunderstood, about how I had embarrassed her by making private family matters public, about people at church whispering, about how differently they looked at her now. Near the end, she wrote, after everything I did for you, the least you could do is help me in my time of need. There was a time when that sentence would have undone me. This time, I set the letter down and opened my notebook. On a clean page, I wrote, here is what is real. I listed facts, not feelings. I did not name her. I did not show her face. I told my story without humiliating her the way she humiliated me. I did not cause her health problems. I did not make people whisper. I carried this family when it mattered, even when it cost me. I read the list out loud until it felt heavier than the guilt. Then I folded the letter back into the box and put it away. Not destroyed, not obeyed. The only response I sent went through Mila Fletcher, word for word. I hope you take care of your health and find the support you need. I am not able to step back into this role. I wish you peace. That was it. No debate. No apology tour. No return to a role that had hollowed me out. Mila Fletcher texted a few days later. She cried, she wrote. Then she said you were ungrateful. Then she told her friends you abandoned her. After a pause, she added, she stopped asking for your number. It did not feel like victory. It felt sad, heavy, and calm. I learned something important then. Choosing yourself does not erase grief. It just stops the bleeding. I still miss the idea of a mother sometimes. I still had memories that softened and hurt at the same time. Those feelings did not mean my decision was wrong. They meant I was human. I wrote one last post about it, not to expose her. To close the loop, I wrote about the package, about choosing not to let guilt dictate my future, about how you can hope someone heals without volunteering to be their medicine. I ended it with the truth that had taken me years to learn. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself, and strangely for them, is to step out of a role that was destroying you. Love does not always mean access. Forgiveness does not always mean reunion. When I hit publish, I did not feel triumphant. I felt finished. That night, I stood on my small balcony, and looked toward the glow of the plant in the distance. The same place where I once read a message that erased me. The same place that taught me my worth was never something my mother got to assign. I still clock in. I still wear steel-toe boots. I still get tired. But I no longer hear her voice when I swipe my badge. I hear my own. And sometimes, the voices of people who say thank you for telling the truth. So let me ask you this. If a parent asked you to step back into a role that once crushed you and called it forgiveness, would you do it? Or would you choose your freedom and trust that putting yourself first does not make you selfish? Because choosing yourself is not abandonment. Sometimes it is survival.